Welcome to Spiritual Steps, a podcast about learning to pray, listen, and grow by taking small steps on the spiritual journey. I'm your host, Stephen Hovatter, and this is episode 16, 10 Tips for Building Community. Now, in the last episode 15, we talked about the importance of stepping towards community. Community is built on what we hold in common, what we share. But it's not enough to just take that 20,000-foot view of it. You need sometimes to be able to have some concrete steps that you can take towards building community with other people. And so for this episode, I want to just very quickly provide the best, my top 10, okay, the best tips that I have. Okay, and this is, there are a couple of these maybe a little bit more abstract, but these are the most dirt level, physical kinds of things that I can think of to tell you. And if you'll try to put a few of these in practice, okay, maybe even just one of them. Okay, I bet it'll help you as you take steps towards community, as you walk into building community or deepening or developing community. Whether it's something that you're just getting started with, or whether you're pushing forward into something that's already present. Okay, this is just the best dirt level stuff that I've got. Okay, so here we go. Number one is get the digits. Now, this was in the last episode, but I want to say it again because I had a couple people tell me that I thought that was a good straight tip, and I think it is. I think it's a really important thing. You need to find a way to regularly communicate if you're going to build community with somebody. Okay, and frankly, texting is your best bet, okay? It's definitely better than the social media vehicles because you're talking about people that you're meeting and communicating and spending time with in real life, okay? IRL, baby. And you really need to be able to have that texting connection to do that, okay? Just the act of like giving your number to somebody is a different sort of act than confirming a friend request. Okay, and so asking to do that is to asking to make this sort of connection that's a little bit different than something that just happens in the social space. Okay, so get the digits. All right, find a way to get that connection made as quickly as you can in a new relationship, and it'll definitely help you out. Okay. Number two, make room for play. Just because you're developing spiritual community, it doesn't mean that it only comes through deep conversational exchange, the kind of thing where somebody ends up weeping before it's all over with, okay? You need to have play to build relationships over the long haul, okay? And that's just important because it brings this kind of everyday element of life and joy and all that kind of stuff into the relationship. Okay, so here's the deal. I mean, for me, my wife Kelly, like we love a good nerdy board game, and we have developed a lot of spiritual friendships. Not necessarily just wrestling with somebody's deep issue, but working through something like playing a Settlers of Catan game or Carcassonne or some other thing that we like and enjoy. And just having that space for play. And for some people that is that nerdy board game. Some people it's athletic stuff. Some people it's maybe even conversation about entertainment, like watching some show regularly together or something like that. Okay, whatever it is though, find that space for play. Play is a underrated builder of community. It's an underrated builder of community. And when you learn to do that with somebody, you are creating some of those things that we talked about last week: shared time, shared experience, shared memory, and that's some of the cement that holds a relationship together. So play. Don't be afraid to engage in play as you develop friendship. Listen, churches need to play more. I don't know why we don't get that, but we need to have a space for play together. Okay, one of the reasons that people experience the youth ministry world so much more profoundly than they do like adult church. We talk about this gap between these two spaces. One of the things that makes it worse in the adult space is we don't reserve time for play, and you need to have that. You need to mark it out. Number three, get out your phone. Look at people, all right? Don't sit there and look at the screen and totally be whipping through Twitter or getting an update from Facebook or, Snapchat or whatever. Get out of your phone sometimes. When you're present with other people, be fully present. Look at them, talk to them, engage with them, interact with them. Now, go ahead and pull out that phone to get the digits. But when it's time when you're in that space where you're actually just being with someone, it's okay for you to be bored with somebody, and it's okay for you to, be fully present to that person that you're with, man. That phone's going to go home with you, all right? But the people that are in that room, like when you're together with them, that's like the sacred space that you can't reserve that later. So do that, okay? Get out of your phone. Number 4, go eat local food. Yeah, that's right. Go eat food. I know some of my friends here on the podcast are just waiting for that time when I actually talk about eating because it's such a part of my life. I love some food. But here's the deal. Everybody loves a hot tip on a local dive that they haven't tried yet, okay? And if you know that there's this certain place that you can go and get this certain thing that nobody else has really tried yet, all right? Man, gather up a group of people and go do that. And that kind of experience is fun, man. People like to do that, and it builds community over time. Go eat local stuff, okay? And I think that local piece is actually important. Maybe that's just my, sort of pretentious food culture or whatever. But I think, man, going and finding that local place and doing it together and saying the experience of saying to somebody, man, I found the coolest thing the other day. Come, let's go share this table together. I think that's way underrated. Okay, so try that. Go find something local and go for it with some friends. Now, I tried most of these things that I'm offering aren't like, I tried to keep them like not expensive, okay? And then most of these things don't cost anything at all. This is one that kind of does. So you may have some limitations about how often you can do that. But, man, every once in a while, it's worth it for you to take those eating out dollars and don't use them for like fast food for lunch, but use them for building community with somebody in a new way, okay? All right, number 5, learn to be physically present in conversations. Learn to stand or sit with the sort of angle that makes it easier for other people to join. And this is about as physical and dirt level as I can get. Okay, here's the deal. When you talk with people, there are some people that have this habit of when they come to speak with you, okay, they square their shoulders up with your shoulders. They look directly at you, and that's fine. You can have a kind of intense conversation one-on-one that way, but it makes it almost impossible for somebody else to come and to join and to be part of that conversation, okay? But if you'll stand at something like kind of, and this may seem awkward, but if you stand at like a 45-degree angle, okay, it kind of invites other people to come and join in that conversation because there's like space, okay? And think about it this way. When you're in a conversation with 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people, however many it is, okay, try to be standing in such a way that it makes it almost like as if if it's you and somebody else, think about if there was a third person, where would they stand? And go ahead and make space for them before they walk up. Nobody wants to join in a conversation that doesn't have the physical space for them there. It's awkward you just can't believe how awkward that feels, okay? So make the physical space before the third person, the fourth, or whoever is present. And it'll feel different, okay? Just kind of like open up your shoulders to somebody and you're just having a different kind of conversation all of a sudden. So, when we think about that like physical like stage work, when people like actors and stuff, when you're working on blocking out some kind of piece of stage work, you learn to do that in a way that you never turn your back to the audience, right? Okay. Well, when you're in conversation, like in a room, like a crowded room of people, if you turn your back to the rest of the room, okay, or if you stand in such a way with this person that it kind of blocks off the rest of the room, then it isolates that conversation and it becomes an impediment to community rather than a tool for building it. So learn to stand physically in space in a way that makes it easy for other people to join in. Number 6, be always searching for common ground. And here's the hot tip here. Common ground comes in a lot of different packages. Sometimes it's because your grandma lived in the same hometown as their grandma. Sometimes it's because you enjoyed playing, sport that this other person played, or you played in the band, and or something like that, and in your background. Or sometimes it's because you both like the same kind of socks. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. There's common ground, and if you can learn to play with that common ground and playfully search, be on the quest for common ground, that's good. Now, common ground isn't everything. Sometimes finding ways to accent the things that make us different is important too, okay? Like being able to notice that and kind of play off of that can be a very fun way of building community. But when you are always on the quest for common ground, it begins to emerge. And if you have the perception that it's going to come in lots of different packages, you're going to be ahead in the game, okay? Number 7, follow up, follow up, follow up. Make plans, okay? When you leave a conversation, be thinking about when the next time you might get together with that person might be. And, that may be really obvious, or it may be just, hey, I'll see you next week, okay? I mean, it may be really, but the more concrete it is, the better, especially early in a relationship, okay? So, now I'm not saying you have to, like, close a sale here. Don't be dogging somebody. No, tell me when you're going to come hang out with me. That's not the deal. But if you just got to be in the habit for looking for the next thing and then finding a way to pursue that later and making sure that you get in touch with that person, that's like a really good deal, and it sustains community. Community is built over time. And so when you are able to kind of string several interactions together, that's when you know you're really progressing. Okay? Number 8, cultivate curiosity. Cultivate curiosity. Relationships are, it's really easy to enter into these conversations sometimes and be so preoccupied with yourself because we live in our brains, we live in ourselves so much, and we forget that when we are in conversation with somebody else, that we need to pour our attention towards them. That's easier to do if you really nourish a sense of curiosity in your own self, okay? So that you're always like wondering about that person and finding something. And if you have just kind of this fountain of curiosity within you, and that can be nourished, by the way, that can be cultivated. I mean, some people may be more naturally curious than others, but if you cultivate a sense of curiosity about other people, then you have this kind of just continual well to draw on when you're engaging them, okay? And people like to be engaged. Sometimes they don't show it, but they like to be engaged. And, now that's not to say that there aren't times where, you can be up in somebody's grill so much and you need to leave them alone. But people in general terms like to be engaged, particularly about themselves, okay? And if you're always just bringing up something that happened to you, and even that, I want to say that even that common ground thing can come across that way sometimes. Like somebody tells you something and you say, oh yeah, that's just like what happened to me, blah, 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 and you kind of take over the conversation and make it about you. The way of searching for common ground is really about seeking out what's true about the other person. Maybe you mentioned, oh yeah, I did something like that too. I loved it. What did you think about it? Always reflect that question back, to the other person. And when you cultivate curiosity, those questions come naturally because you want to know what the other person thinks, feels, what their experiences are, and that's just a great pathway to building community with somebody. So cultivate your spirit of curiosity. It's a great step towards building community with somebody, is expressing that curiosity. All right, and the next one, number 9, I'm going to say you need to balance openness to relationships with intentionality in terms of your relational focus, okay? What I mean by that is you can't be befriending 200 people at one time. So you need to have in mind, okay, these are the 2 or 3 people, that I'm really developing a new sort of relationship where I'm pressing this relationship into new ground with. And kind of have that, seriously, think about it, right? Like, as soon as you get off, listen to podcasts, think about who those 2 or 3 people are that you are intentionally progressing in your relationship with. That's a big time factor. Okay, now at the same time, you want to be intentional about that, but it doesn't mean just because you're chasing after those 2 or 3, pursuing that relationship, that you're closing yourself off towards everyone else. So you want to have a sense of being open to new people that might come up, new relationships that might present themselves. And there's a balance to be held here. There's a tension between that openness and this level of intentionality. Both of them serve you well, but you kind of have to hold them together. Okay. Number 10, know yourself. Okay, you need to know that your own tendencies as you engage in relationships. Do you tend to dominate the room by talking too much, or do you tend to fold yourself into the corner and never say anything at all? Okay, and here's the thing. Know yourself, own yourself, be comfortable with who you are for sure. But you need to, as you do that, also be willing to occasionally buck the trend, okay? And that means that sometimes you got to be willing to, in my case, I'm totally an extrovert. I talk all the time. And so I got to be willing that when I get into places to bite my tongue, okay, and save that space for somebody else's speech. Okay, somebody else's self-revelation in the relationship. But also, in the same sense, those of you that are oriented differently, you need to be prepared to speak up sometimes, okay? And, as a rule of thumb, I just say, for me, sometimes I need to go into a room and I need to listen twice as much as I would talk normally. Or not just as I would talk, just as much as I talk, okay? Have twice as much listening time as I do speaking time. And for some of you, you may need to say, you know what, I need to speak twice as much as I normally do. And just go into a room with that kind of goal, and it can help you build community, okay? Know yourself, but be willing to, stretch those comfort zones and practice something a little bit different sometime, and that'll help you out, okay? All right, so these are my top 10 things. Those are the best, just ground level tips that I have for building community. That's it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Keep pressing towards community, and we'll be back soon with a new episode. Until then, keep taking the next step that you see in front of you, and may God be with you on each step of your journey. Peace.